Now, we've been tracking the atrocious ratings of Disney's Doctor Who, their co-production with BBC for a while, and while taking a look into the future while also respecting the past, realizing that, wow, Series 15 is 100% going to have to outperform Season 14 if it hopes to make it to Season 16, which, hey, according to Russell T Davies, guys, we have to see the entirety of a Season 15 before we get a Season 16. That's the way that show business works, guys. It's not like, shows aren't picked up on the regular for multiple season runs. No. That's not how this works. You plebs, you bigots, you just don't know how this stuff works. But I've opined, and so many other people think that, after the conclusion of those two contracted Disney seasons where BBC and Russell T Davies got $100 million to produce the tripe that has been on screen recently, that's going to be the end of it after that. There's been rumors that Ncudi's been, eschewed from the set. Millie Gibson has already left, and she's been replaced by a much more diverse companion. And the series looks more aimless than it ever has. The ratings are absolutely in the toilet, but that's also not going to stop the BBC unless, of course, they get defunded, which doesn't look all that possible, especially under a Labour government, but that's another topic for another time. But the moment that the BBC's TV license fees eventually go away, the moment that ads start to litter the once great British Broadcasting Corporation, nobody's going to be watching this stuff, bro. But that's not going to stop them from making sure that it's diverse on the way out. So potentially there could be a Season 16 of New Who, and Ncuti Gatwa could be there because the BBC needs him to be there. The BBC increases its representation targets to 25% after spending nearly $320 million to drive diversity and inclusion both on and off air. I'm so glad that the UK taxpayer dollars are going to such worthwhile causes. The British Broadcasting Company announced it will increase its representation targets for its TV production teams from 20 to 25% across all production roles. Why? Why do you have to, at threat of penalty or prosecution, need to force diversity into these roles? You've looked at your products, you've looked at the dwindling returns, and you thought, you know what? All these changes that we made in recent years, we need to go ahead and, instead of course correcting, we need to double down on this stuff, because the problem is, it's not that we're prioritizing superfluous metrics, is that we aren't prioritizing them enough. That's the problem, after all. Sure thing. In a press release, the company stated the BBC is launching ambitious new creative diversity commitments to increase diversity and inclusion within program-making teams and ensure that the stories told on air are authentically reflective of audiences across the UK, a country that for the vast majority is still 80% white. And if it wasn't for places that have been completely and totally colonized like London, it would be much higher than that. You take a look at the UK countryside, wow, you see an awful lot of diversity. You see people that are bald, you see people that are balding, you see men, you see women, but yeah, not in the way that you're trying to push anything. Interesting. To that point, it is raising its targets across ethnicity, disability, and socioeconomic diversity. Hey, what? Okay, so you're going to be hiring poor people, and that's going to go ahead and make it diverse? Yo, that's kind of crazy. From 20 to 25% across all production roles. Cool. You're not really talking about people that, have experience, have talent in that roles. No, you check the right boxes. Yeah, this is going to go great. Not only did the company share that it was increasing its representation targets, but it also revealed it would invest $105 million in content that meets BBC's creative diversity criteria for TV and radio. Yeah, that's great. Okay, you're going to hire diverse hosts on a medium that you can't even, see the diversity? Yeah, that's cool. I don't know, right? If you want to have proper representation on the fried chicken and watermelon hour, then, I understand. It specifically noted this money will focus on aligning diverse on-air storytelling with stronger off-air representation in senior production roles and leadership within production companies. Yeah, this shit is just so racist because you think that people can't tell different types of stories and they can only tell the stories based on their immutable characteristics. That's great. That's so great when they tell them themselves like this. The company also revealed it spent nearly $320 million over the last 3 years. Imagine having the purse strings to just spend just at your own will, at your own whims, over $100 million a year. I wouldn't even know what to possibly do with that. But in this race and gender grift, I guess just wasting that much money in such a short period of time is an easy thing to do to drive diversity and inclusion both on and off the air. It has previously pledged around $150 million. Wow. $470 million you're never going to get returns on. Or if you do, they're record low returns. Picture somewhat relevant. Now, the BBC will also be requiring potential productions to outline their plans to deliver the 25% target and how they will apply an inclusive production principles as part of the commissioning process. The inclusive production principles require processes are in place for inclusive casting and crew. It also demands that productions will provide specialist hair and makeup stylists to work with afro-textured hair and a variety of skin tones. Now, okay, as goofy as that sounds, that's the type of hiring practices that's probably not the worst thing in the world because, yeah, different hair textures, different skin tones require different types of hiring practices, but there would be companies and production houses already doing that stuff. Because the world is just naturally diverse, enforcing this stuff is only done by ideologues and it only ends up producing negative consequences. But okay, production will also have to provide access to diversity, equity, and inclusion education training. It's always this hustle. It literally always is. Whenever I see big numbers like in the hundreds of $millions, it always comes back to pushing these training schedules. It never fails to foster a culture of inclusion and transparency, except for if you want to review any of those materials, then you're called a bigot for wanting to take a look at what's in that racist training book. BBC Chief Content Officer Charlotte, of course, like, who's always pushing this stuff, okay? A woke white bitch named Charlotte commented on the new targets in the company's spending promise. We are committed to backing British storytelling. There's nothing British about forcing diversity in this stuff because last time I checked, Britain is supposed to be for the British, not supposed to be for all of your little pet races and pet genders that you're trying to raise up. Idiot. And I recognize the important role diverse-led indies play in telling these authentic stories. There's nothing authentic about institutionalizing these practices. What don't you get about this? How can you honestly say this stuff unless you're just so unless you're just so brain-rotted? How can you say authentic and then you're also trying to force behaviors? It doesn't work. It makes no sense. By increasing our investment in diverse content and enhancing our off-screen diversity targets, we aim to create a more inclusive environment that authentically represents and resonates with all our audiences, she added. It's weird because I was going to use this slide, I was going to use this tweet for another video that I was going to record, but I think that this is probably, it's good enough to place in here right now because you have a company that is wildly successful, okay? Wildly successful company that is just dominating its corner of the industry in Nintendo. It has very little bloat. $62 billion market cap, right? It has 7,000 people. As of, 2021 across the world. And then you have Ubisoft, a company where, if you're not following any of the gaming coverage that I do, is basically on the brink of collapse, okay? They're either going to devolve into bankruptcy or they're going to be acquired by somebody next year. Like, nothing that they're doing is doing well, but they're doing incredible work in the realm of diversity, inclusion, and equity. See where I'm going with this? But yeah, Ubisoft has a market cap of just $1.6 billion and employs 20,000 people. Which company has the DEI ESG policies that they need to adhere to? One guess. Oh, very good. You got it. There's $100 million in ideological funny money. They'll probably do more with it than the BBC will. But that's what happens, man. You just end up staffing your company with do-nothing ideologues. As opposed to Nintendo, who every once in a while will do something completely and totally floopy that I wouldn't advise you do. But in general, they just make video games that people are looking forward to. Like the rest of the release docket and on the AAA front for 2024, it's a barren wasteland of bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb. It basically looks like the landscape of Kuwait. Except one, and it's so funny, right? Like it's a perfect capstone to this. Nintendo is their one lone first-party AAA release in the form of The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Time, and you know what? It's a standalone game where you play as Princess Zelda. Guess what? It's a diverse game by their standards, and it's going to very likely end up dominating the holiday season. as opposed to Ubisoft. They have a diverse game coming out called Assassin's Creed Shadows with a black samurai that they had to rewrite history in order to make sense for. I wonder which game is going to end up selling better. I wonder which policy is going to end up working out best for its company in the long term. And I wonder what the long-term health of the BBC is going to be. Oh, just like Ubisoft's, in the toilet once the money runs out. And oh boy, that's going to be sooner rather than later. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.